Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is Techchill week here in Riga, Latvia, the week where startups, businesses, government officials, they all gather together to look into the crystal ball and find out what the future will bring us, to look for solutions, to look for problems maybe that need to be solved in the future for the better of the business environment and, of course, for the better of the society. My name is Ģirts Bērziņš. I will be hosting this stage here today and one of the discussions as well. The ones who are looking online, hello to you too. We are here at Fantodroms for the Techchill event, Latvia Level Up, Government and Startups for Better Services, powered by the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development of the Republic of Latvia. Dear viewers who are here in attendance, this event will be hosted in English, so for your convenience and comfort, there are some headphones by the entrance if you wish. There's a English-Latvian translation. And for the viewers who are watching us online, please look at your video window, and somewhere in the menu there should be a switch button which switches from one channel to the other. I don't have a crystal ball here in front of me, but I have prepared something even better for you, for all viewers who have joined us here today. I have very enthusiastic people from the startup environment, from the business environment, from the government side, and we will be looking at and answering several different questions. For example, how to identify the necessities of the society and how not to miss the right moment when different digital solutions need to be implemented. We will answer these questions and a lot more here today in two blocks. Each block will contain a case study and a discussion afterwards. So today, let's listen to the experiences, let's discuss, let's talk about both success and failures, because we need to learn from both and learn from different practices that we will hear on this stage and search for solutions that can actually be implemented in practical work afterwards. So right now, I would like to open up the event with the first presentation, and as the speaker already highlighted in the description of the presentation, the key word for this presentation will be symbiosis, which comes from the Greek symbiosis, or living together. If we look at the description, it is any type of a close and long-term biological interaction between two biological organisms of different species, termed symbionts, be it mutualistic, commensalistic, or parasitic. So how does this biological term apply to today's event and today's context? Well, this next man will tell you and show you how. Let's welcome on the stage with a round of applause the head of digital innovation and strategy and digital banking at Swedbank, Ģirts Bērziņš.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for kind words. Sometimes to look in the future, you need to look in the past, and that I would try to do in next few minutes. So, lessons in symbiosis: banks or fintechs, banks and fintechs, banks, fintechs, and so on. So, the story started some 10 years ago, when CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, wrote a letter to shareholders saying that, Silicon Valley startups are here to eat Wall Street lunch. So everybody, some 10 years ago, was afraid. Fintechs were not afraid, I think, but the banks were a bit scared. What fintechs were saying that they will deliver smooth experience, banks are scammed, and there will be alternative within few years for banking market. However, just within few years, rhetorics changed, and some of rebels of yesterday said that, yeah, but maybe we need to make friends with the banks, and instead of fighting banks, let's explore the future together. And very few years later, we can even say that there are multiple waves of banks and fintech relations. Yes, there are still rebels around. There are fintechs which looks on banks as opportunity to expand the reach of their services, And banks nowadays look that maybe fintechs are the ones who help to reach customers, to increase accessibility, go towards embedded banking. And that's not all. We know that this decade in Europe is announced as the digital decade. And by the end of the decade, we should experience not only open banking, open finance, but even open economy. Then, for example, it is stated by European Union that 100% of health data should be digitalized and available by customer consent to anybody who can construct much better experiences for customers. So high e-health in Latvia. So yeah, but then what is this? Banks afraid and banks not anymore afraid. And when it started a few years later, CEO of Swedbank Group asked me then, what do you say? What are those potential relations with fintech? And I kind of, top of my mind, I said that yeah, there is perspective because mushrooms do not fight trees. Yeah? So I remember my school years in biology. And yeah, this is a phenomena which we understand by this symbiosis, that there is possible coexistence of two species of different DNA, remember, yeah, and only challenge is that there are three types of those symbioses. That one type which probably everybody is looking for, which is mutualistic, when both parties gain some benefit from this coexistence. Then there is this communalistic, I even don't know how to pronounce, because but it's quite common, I think. It's when one party gains benefit, but other neither gets benefit or harm. And then obviously there is this parasitic, when one party gains benefit, but another party does not very much enjoy it. Yeah? So obviously in banking and fintech relations, we are looking for the third option. And I think this hints as well, if we are talking about today government and tech community, startup community, try to avoid the first one. Second is good enough, but if we can reach the third one, then it's perfect. Yeah, but then I am hearing as well quite often, no, yeah, but banks are like those big elephants, and then fintechs are much faster dogs, and you know the difference between dogs and elephants running, that dogs are chasing something, but elephants are usually running away of something. Yeah? So it's a different nature of the run. So what to do with this, and is it then the symbiosis possible? And what I can say is that yes, fintechs and banks, we live on a bit different levels of horizons of innovation. Definitely we know that yeah, fintechs are striving this at least Horizon 2 or at least Horizon 3, that future technology in new market. However, big banks, systemic banks, obviously cannot afford too high level of risks, which includes as well this innovation risk. But this exactly is a source of this symbiosis, that let's not look on disadvantages of each other, but look on advantages. Yeah? So let's put together this Horizon 3 of innovation with the scale and trust of this Horizon 1 company or governmental institution, and I think then this magic can fly. So this is just my quick brain dump on what is this difference of Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3 companies, and probably you recognize where you are or your partners are. And yeah, so instead of trying to change dogs into elephants or elephants into dogs, I think the future lies into that these dogs and elephants can mutually coexist in friendly life. And that's what we are trying to do in the banking industry, and Swedbank as well. We have this now for more than 4 years running open banking portal, open banking APIs, so everyone is invited here. However, what we discovered over those last 4 years, that just open innovations are sometimes not very productive, because sometimes it results into things that there is nice technology which is still trumping around the world, finding the solution for which it could be applied. So instead of that, we are more and more speaking and doing things around focused innovations. So we indicate area where we would like to get solution and inviting and accelerating companies, like we have accelerator in Vilnius called Rocket, which is currently hosting acceleration program for sustainable finance. Yes, then some homework has to be done for those elephants to live together with much faster maybe species. So first of all, what I try to preach internally, and we have now even stickers on laptops that API or die. Yeah, so this is kind of you know, it's for years, the tech guys and girls, but yeah, this is the thing. Why API or die? Nowadays it's clear, because it's AI or die. So if you do not have APIs, then AI is basically not working. And why you have this AI? Because obviously you are targeting each individual, and this is a way how you deliver excellent service to customers. So have it very individual and connected. And overall, morale of my story is that only difference which can be made is that if we made it together. Thank you. That was my symbiotic
powered through these 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, Ģirts Bērziņš, you might be wondering why are we listening about banks and fintechs, but you will get it in the end. In the discussion, you will see the analogy, and Ģirts will join us in the panel discussion afterwards. I would like to note down focused innovation. Let's discuss that afterwards in the panel discussion. But today, we are here like in a kindergarten. We're learning new words. And the next word, if you possess this in your characteristic traits, you might be considered a very, very hot asset in any organization you're working at. And the new word that we're going to learn is market intelligence. Why is it so important, and what can you do with it in the public sector as well? Let's learn from the CEO and co-founder of the software development company Sorcera, Ģirts Bērziņš.
Thank you, Ģirts, for a very interesting presentation. I think you had some AI-generated images for the dogs and elephants as well. Yeah, that was very nice. My name is Ģirts Bērziņš, and I'm working in this interesting space between technology and government. And whenever I go to some other co-founders here, I say I work with governments, and they are like, oh, how is it? And I'm like, it's exciting. It's the most fantastic user group in the world. What we did, we started a company 2.5 years ago with my co-founder Rudolf Kreisbergs, and we are working between these government users and the business, let's say, ecosystem. What we try to do is to bring together the, let's say, organizations on both sides so that they can interact better. Of course, this is most evident in the procurement environment because data shows and experience shows that the more knowledgeable buyers, the better tender outcomes that they can achieve in terms of value, risk reduction, and many other cases. But I've been told that tenders are a bit of a dry subject, so I will not focus on that, and instead I will talk about technology adoption. So this is a curve that startups know very well. This is the technology adoption curve, which shows a very basic truth, that different users have different appetites for technology. We have the very early users who are the tech enthusiasts. They'll jump at any opportunity to try out new tech, despite any bugs that it may have. Then we may have a little bit more later group that are more patient. They want to see the early rabbits. Are they still alive? If they are, then maybe they start using the technology as well. And in the very end, we have, let's say, the more conservative, skeptical type, and they will maybe only upgrade to a smartphone once their Nokia 3310 dies out, finally. So the question I want to ask is, where should governments be on this curve, and when they should adapt new technologies? As an example, I want to use ChatGPT. Can I have a show of hands who has used or is using ChatGPT? It's great to see so many hands. When I asked this question 3 months ago at the public procurement conference, only 3 hands out of 50 shot up. And of course, this has been an explosive adoption of technology across all sectors and industries. And what we see is that they achieved 100 million users in just 2 months, something that took Netflix a decade to achieve. But the more interesting case for me is that maybe at the beginning, the public sector was quite slow to adopt it. But what we see is now, this is just one event that is organized by the Ministry of Education together with LICTA, and they are trying to teach how to use ChatGPT at schools. And to me, this is phenomenal, because the government or the public sector are at a unique position that at the point that they have made the decision to adopt the technology, they can do it at scale. And I want to say that governments or the public sector are a unique technology adapter with its advantages and risks and challenges. So on the one hand, we have the advantages. We have the most, they probably have the best data. Maybe the information systems are outdated, but the data is probably the best out of all the industry players. They can make this centralized decision-making. Once they make these decisions, they can be implemented very fast, and they can focus on the long term. But on the challenges side, of course, we have regulatory constraints. They are not as free to use new technologies as maybe the business environment can do it. There are large decision timeframes, and maybe the most important, at least for us as a startup, what we see is that they favor stability over innovation in many cases. But still, within these constraints, what we see is that leaders in the public sector can still make decisions to adopt technologies faster. And what I want to say is that market intelligence is at the core of making these decisions as soon as possible. So what is market intelligence? Thank you for the introduction. This is a new term that is more understood in other industries, but is only coming to, let's say, procurement and the public sector. And this is basically what we know about the market. First of all, what we understand about our needs and how they are related to the market. Second is what is available on the market. What are the products, services, technologies coming up on the market, and what will be available, let's say, in 1 month or in 1 year. And third is the knowledge of the players. So these are the companies, ecosystems that are providing these kinds of services. And what I've seen as the best example is that this is an iterative process. This is not a linear process, although maybe the procurement regulation says that you have to understand the need, then you describe the requirements, and then you go to a tender. But the best practices are that once you start to understand your need, you can start to have these discussions with different players, and maybe some other organization in another country has solved the same problem, and in maybe a more cost-effective way, in a quicker way. And your understanding of the need changes. It's being reframed. So we urge always these leaders to think about this gaining market intelligence as an ongoing process, not as a one-time, let's say, procurement where you ask a consultant, okay, what should we do? But think about it every day. And of course, there are many ways how to get this market intelligence, and we could spend probably an hour talking about it. But in general, we always urge to think about the ways how to define their needs in a best way, especially for procurement. This is very important. What you want to do is to have the requirements as close to the procurement as possible. You don't want to wait to set decisions, irreversible decisions, 2 years in advance, because you need to plan for tenders in advance. So you want to keep this flexibility as much as possible. But maybe I will delegate this question to a smarter entity, which is ChatGPT, to whom we ask, GPT, how can governments better learn about new technologies? And as you see, the #1 recommendation is regularly attending technology conferences. So feel free to make sure that you are in the right place, and have a great event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ģirts. So I wonder when we will see an AI government official one day, maybe, you know? That could be a very interesting future. Hope it never comes and people are still in charge. Today we're playing not with just words, we're playing with puzzles as well. And today we're trying to match up 2 pieces of the puzzle, which is the public sector or the government side and the business side. And our next speaker actually is as a bridge builder, a gap narrower between these 2 worlds in her professional life. She's a partner at the innovation management company Helve. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome on the stage Līva Pērkone.
Hey everyone, really exciting to see all of you here and everyone watching at home on day 0 of Techchill, the most exciting event of the year. I heard a few terms being introduced today, and I will start a little bit about the term that everyone knows. So what I do, I'm a partner at innovation management company Helve. What we basically do, we usually bring together companies, organizations, corporates with startups. Sometimes we also work together with governments. I'm going to share a little bit more about how we do that. But let's start with a little bit about what is innovation. So I think for the last few years, innovation is kind of a really trendy word. People want to do the innovation. All the companies want to do innovation. They build they hire people to do innovation, but at the end of the day, kind of what is it really and what you can do with it. And there are mostly two types of innovation models. This is what we usually do on a daily basis. There is internal innovation, where companies do R&D inside, develop new products, do internal processes. And then there's the other format of innovation, which is basically open innovation. And in essence, open innovation means that you look for ways to improve together with an external partner. And this is the main benefit of doing open innovation, is that you can access knowledge and opportunities and ideas from the outside. So basically, you can do way more than you could just using your internal resources. One case study on how we did innovation, open innovation together with the government. It's the case study about a pilot program. It's called Open Health Labs, where we worked together with the National Health Service of Latvia, where we did the collaboration of two very kind of important elements. You need to have the government and the state sector, which trusts and is open to innovate and gives its vision, its funding to the startups, and its industry knowledge. We are, as we mentioned, a little bit more about a bridge builder. We scout the startups and help with the execution that we can do. This was a very, very, I would say, ambitious program. It was the very, very first time we did something like that in Latvia and the government. So it was a really good example on how the government trusted and took a risk in investing in startups. And our goals with this first pilot program was to test out and see if there can be a potential to work together with startups and bring efficiency or bring value to the, I would say, clients of the government, and the clients of the government and the state institutions are us, the citizens. And so we decided that our goals are to test a few pilot projects, and if we would get at least 8, we started with 8 challenges. We decided at least 30% would be a great goal. We actually finalized with 4 pilots that are being implemented already this year. And here's a few examples. And in this case, the whole pilot program is about investing in healthcare. There are examples on how startups can help monitor patients, on how startups can help work together with doctors and professionals and use telemedicine. And the one thing that is in common with all of these solutions is that startups can give their technology or their ideas to make the state service better or more efficient or better for the citizens and their kind of clients who are their main goal. And that's one of the case study. I won't go into it much detail, but we talk a lot, and what we do on a daily basis, we talk about innovation methods and models and ways of doing that, how we can innovate, how we can learn. We just heard that one of the best ways is to be at a tech conference. But there are hundreds of ways on how to innovate. But before we can actually do that successfully, and this is also very important for the state, is to understand why should the government innovate? Because there needs to be a very clear reason to start with before we can actually get valuable results. And this is kind of the innovation model triangle that we usually use. And for the 2 upper sides are kind of obvious. So there's business growth. You can innovate to have better financial results, to bring in new products. But to bring in the business growth, you need to also have the innovation culture within an organization that promotes it. But there's also a third foundation of everything, that you need to have the ecosystem and the industry that promotes innovation, that makes it possible to actually innovate. And that's where the government comes in. And when businesses think about innovation, for them, it's pretty straightforward. They have business growth, they innovate so they can give better services to their customers, better efficient processes, so they can do things cheaper or faster or better. For the public sector, it's a little bit different. Their aim is not business growth, or their aim is not to do kind of better business or to get more money out of their clients. Their priorities is the customer experience, and sometimes also the economic growth of the industry itself. Also, elements that are not relevant for organizations that are kind of private companies are very relevant for the state, such as access and transparency of data. I will try not to break the whole ecosystem right now, but yeah. So anyway, there are a lot of benefits. It depends on the state sector, it depends on the government, but these are the first questions we need to answer on why are we innovating as the state organization, or why are we innovating as a government or a ministry, before we can think about what the models are or what the format is, so we can be sure that it actually brings the benefits that we do. So I will leave it at that, and let's discuss before I break something else.
Thank you, Līva. A groundbreaking presentation. Thank you very much for that, giving intro both to this discussion and for the next. Right now, before the next panel discussion, I would actually like to welcome on the stage a man that has laid the foundation of many startups here in Latvia. He's actually raised the bar of many businesses, and right now he's actually in the third seat as well, working as an advisor in the public sector. More specifically, he's the advisor to the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development in matters of digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome on the stage Mr. Ģirts Avots.
Lovely. So greetings from the minister. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here because of extraordinary government meeting. You know, things happen, like stages break, etc. Yeah, I do know we have a branding problem because, you know, whenever you talk to someone in different countries, you have like digital ministry, etc., and we have the Ministry for Environmental, etc., protection. And by the way, we also do digital, but it's not in the title, right? So we know we have a branding problem. Hopefully we'll get to it, but I actually have a founder's badge. It's not fake. So I'm a founder, doing our own breakfast side event tomorrow morning. So a little bit of misuse of stage right, but yeah, I happen to be you know, chipping in some thoughts to the government. And one thing I want to say is, like, look, the totality of government, like if you look at how many people work in the ministries, it's like one medium, large size company here in Latvia. So sometimes when we talk about government, we think about this big beast, but it's actually, you know, a few thousand people. And the ones who work with digital, you know, not too many, let's put it this way, right? So, and we live in turbulent times where the world is changing like on a daily basis, and we definitely need to move faster. And, you know, honestly, the government needs help with good ideas, and not just like do something, but like, hey, this is how you could do it. So kind of, you know, wanted to use the opportunity and give a shout out to tech community. You know, the government's not evil. Go and talk to them. If you have some spare capacity, chip in with your ideas, and there's a pretty high chance that, you know, you'll get some ideas through. So that's sort of my mission, why I'm trying to help the guys out. It's one thing. The other thing is, you know, we are thinking that we need to do some things differently, and I decided I'm going to tease a little bit of spoiler that Gatis probably will whack me afterwards because it's not official, there's no documents around it, but basically our thinking is that in the next planning period, which is kind of this summer to figure out how we're going to allocate the digital money, we want to have a bucket for the wild ideas, right? We know we need to fix the e-health and et cetera, but we also can't just like build stuff that is already out there, and we should try out new things. So definitely we're going to look into just having a bucket for the crazy ideas, how to make the first world's autonomous bureaucrat, or, you know, whatever the industry comes up with. So that's what's cooking on our side, talking with the government hat. And yeah, builders, just join in and help out. It's actually pretty fun. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro, for the discussion. Without wasting any more time, without long introductions, I would like to welcome back on the stage the speakers that you already heard in the next panel discussion called The Power of Tech Community. So welcome back with a very loud round of applause, Mr. Ģirts Bērziņš, Mr. Ģirts Slaviņš, and Ms. Līva Pērkone. Welcome back on the stage. Please make yourselves comfortable. I don't know whose water was that dropped, but I didn't pick it up. Sorry for that. And let's welcome on the stage a few people that you haven't heard or seen here on the stage this morning, today. Mr. Ģirts Slaviņš, he's the head of the electronic payment application Mobility. Let's welcome him warmly. Welcome. Ģirts and Ģirts, the ones that are sitting in between, please make a wish. Next up, Mr. Māris Dreimanis, Head of Digital Transformation at the National Health Service of Latvia. Welcome. Welcome, Māris. And let's welcome on the stage Mr. Gattis Ozols, Deputy State Secretary of Digital Transformation at the Ministry. The ministry with the longest name, the most important ministry in Latvia. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can ask your questions too. I don't promise that we will answer all of them, but right now on the screen there should be a QR code where you can ask your questions if you have any. We have only like 30 minutes, so we're going to go through our questions pretty rapidly so to see what we can get out of this discussion. Of course, as we saw in the intro presentations, I think that the cooperation is quite real and quite doable, and the question is what we want to get out of it and what we can get out of it between the business side and the government side. But just kicking things off, Gati, you have the big task of representing the whole country, the whole government side in this discussion. So without any,
side at least,
at least, so without any heavy things on your shoulders, how would you evaluate right now how open the government is to innovation? And the second follow-up question I would like to ask, actually, from I think Līva's presentation. Why? Why do we need to innovate in the government sector from your point of view? Why do we need that bucket that Krista was talking about?
Yeah. Thank you for the good question, of course, and for the government, on the government shoulders is always the heaviest things regarding our society, not only the things that are internally for the government. And of course, those challenges that government have to take care of, or the social challenges, the environmental challenges, the public service, and so on, they are become more complicated, and you cannot anymore like solve by the government solely by the government those challenges, and you need some extra effort for this. And of course, we are looking. Everyone is looking now for digitalization as like a wonder tool to solve all the problems. And but to the government, we have made the first steps. We've made like digital government, digital services, and now like we are in the leading roles of government providing government digital service. But we see it's like just a small part of all the things that we need to do. But we see now in the government it cannot be solved only by digitalization. You need also to change like different perspective, how you organize things, how you create those added value to society in some environment in connection with businesses, with academia. So we are looking for new ways how to work, how to innovate. And I think that, and I see that there is a demand in government institutions to look for those new models, how to work. And then it's not only digitalization, it's also a new working model. So there is a demand for innovation.
Māris, please do chip in on this matter, as you're the second representative on the public sector side.
Yeah, thank you. I think for us, one of the aspects which also matters quite in fostering the innovation is this foundation or ecosystem component, which Līva perfectly described in the pyramid of innovation. Because for us, laying ground for companies to be able to come in and offer the solution to some specific problems which we put forward for the community, that is one of the key aspects why we would like to enter into this space and work with the startup community as well.
All right, we've heard the public sector side. Now let's turn to the other speakers. Ģirts, my closest Ģirts, as to say. How would you evaluate what you've heard, and also how would you look at the government and business working model in the perspective of what you were talking about, banks and fintechs? Maybe there are some differences, maybe there are some similarities, what you see in the cooperation between the two sides.
I think there are extremely many similarities, and I think we live in times that gives extreme opportunities. What I mean is that it used to be times when everybody expects that everything what, for example, banking industry brings should come from banks. And from one side, yes, we were protecting everything what we created, but from other side, it starts to limit us, especially if your services become more important to society, you are becoming infrastructure level bank, so your risk level should be decreasing, and then how about bold innovations? Nowadays, with this plug and play technologies, those APIs and so on, it gives extremely good opportunities to connect and work on what each side has as advantage. Yeah? So advantage of having Horizon 3 innovation versus having scale and trust on the other side, so plug and play. Obviously, we need to make assessment what are our drawbacks of each of Horizon 1 or Horizon 3 company models. And be aware of it. And there are some issues, obviously, which does not allow this partnership. And by the way, world has changed from the point of view that a few years ago, only way how you could access to technology or external innovation was through procurement. Nowadays, there is an excellent new type of relation, which is this partnership. So again, symbiotic partnership. However, it obviously brings as well new kind of way of thinking, because you are co-delivering and so on. But I think this is really the future, is that you are not fighting. We are even saying that world competition is becoming obsolete. We are using more and more term co-opetition, that you are winning if even your competitor wins as well. So if you are using Smart ID, you know the drill. It's by Swedbank, by SEB, and now by many other banks. Yeah? So I think today we can really enjoy this fourth industrial revolution, this openness and connectivity of technologies. And especially in Europe, we see that open technologies are coming more and more. So basically all industries by the end of the decade will need to produce those APIs to the customer data, obviously with customer consent and so on. And we will see tremendous innovations, and I think starting with the government sector. So if my data with government is available for private sector to create new services for me as a citizen, I think I can only dream what good things are to come.
If at any time you feel the need to comment or ask even a question to other speakers, feel free. I don't want to play a game of football passes, but Ģirts and Georgs, how would you evaluate right now how open the government is to all these innovations? Of course, as somebody said in the first part, we're not going deep into the procurement business. There's separate conference for that, and of course it's a big thing, but it has to be taken into consideration most probably. So how open right now is the government? There's the wish, there's a need. We heard of that. There could be a magic bucket in the future, but what are the main maybe advantages and disadvantages for the government to do innovations? I don't know who wants to start. Georgs.
Yeah, so what we see is, of course, the governments, as any organization or, let's say, user group, they're asymmetrical in the way you don't have, let's say, one general level. There's always some champions for technology in any company, and government is no exception. So there are people working in, let's say, in the public sector in general, that are open and very receptive towards innovation. This is what we see time and time again, that actually the willingness to adopt new technologies is, in some cases, very high. But then, as the private sector also needs to understand that there are constraints to the public sector that are not existing to the private sector. So, of course, there are some other ways how to adopt, let's say, technologies without procurement, and even in procurement, you see all these, let's say, new tools like innovation procurement coming up. But the reality is that we still have the vast majority of let's say, tenders, they are open tenders with very strict procedures. So what you need to do is to understand the process from the government side and to work with them and solve these different kinds of issues so that it's legal according to the procurement regulations. And if you solve those issues, then yes, the governments can be very receptive towards these new solutions and technologies.
Still sounds very sweet. Ģirts, add some, how do you say, pepper to the discussion.
This is like, you know, in one previous panel, I was giving some critique to one service, and after that woman came to me and she was really offended. So now I have to really think about what I'm going to say. But what I think is that it's very fragmented. There are people who are very open, and especially when they are on stages. But in reality, when it goes down to real life working with the governmental institutions, the reality is much, much harder. And in many ways, it's because the government, as it was rightly noted, is actually not that big, but it's very, very fragmented. There are a lot of divisions, and they sometimes even don't know what the others do, or sometimes they don't like what others do, and then don't have very good, they don't cooperate very much so. And what you see is that there are some parts who are very willing to work with startups and to do some things, but actually to get something done, you need this cooperation with the other institutions and government. And I think this is the biggest problem that, one of the biggest problems that we have, and it's not only in IT or innovations, that's in many, many other areas in governmental. So I would say I see this willingness, but there are some, for an elephant sometimes to change its course, it takes both courage and it also takes some flexibility. And this is sometimes what I see, I would say, lacks in government.
Mm-hmm. Which areas lack flexibility? All can chip in. Maybe probably you're very self-conscious. You're working in the government. Well, you see all the things that need to be improved, right?
I think the hardest part, of course, always when it takes the longest time is the cultural things and the constraints which are put of some fears from the way how it will be looked from like some different control institutions. So I think the solution for this is to have some like small scale good case studies, and then build upon them this confidence on working with startups and building some new creative things. And of course, there is also the technical or practical things, but Ģirts already mentioned it, these technical readiness for opening to the private sector, opening an APIs. And there are some examples in government, and we are striving also that government would change their information system architecture and to become more open, but still it takes some time for government, like large systems, it takes maybe longer times than usual business systems. So, but I think the strongest thing is this cultural shift that has to be kind of put.
I would add this fragmentation part also, because what we see is that there are many institutions who do some new services on their own. State Register is making their own new portal where you can register the company. Then the others do something else, and this is, you know, the one of the things, and this is not maybe this is political level already, where it has to come this understanding that the state has to be, it's not a project. At the moment, most of IT projects in state are run like a project, so there is a start and an end, and then maybe some maintenance, maybe, not always. But actually, a state is a platform, it's a product. And this is something that's both cultural, but it's also a mindset that has to start to change that from project-based, that, okay, now we will make this new feature and everything will be great. No, it doesn't work like that. The state is on a platform. It's a platform for its citizens, for investors, for all the people who have some connection, and maybe this is one of the things, and this is about this fragmentation. So when you have a platform, you have to work like Printful or Printify, which is more or less centralized, but still you have some people work on this, some people work on this, some people work on this, and at the moment in the governmental institutions, you have very decentralized actually systems. So there are very independent institutions who work on matters that are actually very connected, and this is one of the problems, I would say.
Before Ģirts, I give you the word, I would like to give word to Līva. 12 minutes have passed, you haven't spoken, but that's on purpose because you are somewhat like a bridge, like a translator between both sides. I hope you've been soaking everything in. What's your view on, what's your take on all of this? How can we work on the problems that have been pointed out?
I think we mentioned already the most important elements in a sense that, yes, currently it's fragmented and each institution kind of has its own way of doing that. Some of them have innovation champions, some are more courageous. But at the end of the day, a government, in essence, is a very hierarchical structure, vertical. In essence, there is a management to this company, which is the cabinet of ministers. So there is one aspect and one factor that, of course, we need to maybe centralize the technological aspects and openness of data and everything else, but there needs to be also what Krists mentioned, that branding element. The state, the government, the cabinet of ministers, the ministers themselves, they need to be very clear on why are we innovating, that we are open to innovate, and this is what we are expecting from the institutions and the organizations under us, and this is what we want to promote. Because we talk about courage from people who work in state institutions, and it's in a way kind of absurd. They shouldn't be courageous. They should have a clear goal and clear KPIs on what they need to improve in their institutions. So it's not kind of about them taking risks, but about them fulfilling the mission that they have been given from the state. And I think maybe that is an element that is lacking. And I'm usually a bit skeptical about discussions because I've been in a lot of them. And for the past, I think, 10 years, talking about government and innovation, I think what I have seen changing in the last maybe year is that I see more government in these discussions, not just the startups and the bridge makers, and that is a very good sign. And in that essence, when the government is here and gives that message from the state, not just us around commenting on how it should be, that is a very good change. And I mentioned before that just this morning we were in another discussion where the Minister of Economy, Dreimanis, was talking about that never will a manager from a state institution be punished for taking risks or investing in startups. And this is a message that I'm amplifying on purpose because I think that needs to be heard from stage. And that will promote maybe innovation more than any practical detail.
Risk-taking in the government, that's a tricky business, right? You're playing with...
I'm assuming there are some practicalities, not just in general, but yeah, he specifically mentioned that it needs to be legal, so...
That's the key point. Things need to be legal, and that sometimes takes time. Māris, and then Ģirts.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think if we start looking at all the services which government is providing and managing those services as a portfolio, where part of this portfolio is being specifically allocated for this innovation, as is a normal business practice. Actually, you have your operational business and then you have specific R&D funds. Then introducing this model into the government also could foster faster adoption of the innovative approaches.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one danger or one risk that technologies are developing so fast and we start to love them so much that sometimes we miss the purpose with the tools. So we need to always remember the technology, including even APIs, it's a tool, yeah, and how to mobilize and how to get the result from innovations, not just do innovations from innovations, is define clear purpose. Yeah? So what exactly we are here to solve. And that is a danger what I quite often actually sometimes see kind of missing, yeah? And then I see guys and girls preaching technology, yeah? And then it's like kind of a bit of a scary moment, yeah? That you are preaching technology, not what exactly you are solving. And not only, I mean here fintech and yeah, can I say it? I don't know, but topics around, for example, central bank digital currencies. Sorry, but I don't, at least myself, I cannot find what is ultimate goal, what exactly it is coming to solve. Yeah, it's amazing technology, it's interesting technology, but if it is brought in too early, it can kill itself, so technological suicide, so that
I have
need to remember. Yeah?
I have an answer. It will solve the control on data. So at the moment, how much money I have is kept by private banks, and nobody else knows it. If it's digital euro, it basically should solve this problem that I allow banks to know how much money I know, and I control to whom I provide this information. So, so probably this is. But I agree on this innovation part that you have to. We talk very much about like innovation, innovate, but it always has to be why and what it will bring to the people. You have to see this answer. And sometimes there are some parts where the state has to do it by itself because there will be no market conditions for doing something that you can have both in health or in other business, other governmental services. There will not always be a market or private companies who will be ready to solve this problem because there is maybe no business for it. There's no way how you can earn from it or how can you fool your investors that you will earn at some stage. So there's, you have to evaluate very much where you put it on the market, and there are fantastic, there are some good examples which nobody knows, where the state is actually doing a great job. For example, in my field, that's a central ticketing warehouse, which is being launched gradually this year, which I would say is something rather innovative from the worldwide stage, and it gives an opportunity to market participants to innovate, but and to provide better service to the end customers. But then, on the other hand, there will always be some places where there is no this business model underneath, and the state has to sometimes to evaluate where you go with the startups and where it's feasible to make all this communication, and where maybe not, where they have to just do it as a product themselves.
Ģirts, how clear is the why from your perspective, and how better to define it? Because there are government officials in this audience as well who would like to probably define the why much better for you to understand what their need is.
And this is, I think something where maybe the startup community is thinking a lot about. This is the first, let's say, rule about making a product. It's you always think about your problem that you're trying to solve instead of the solution. Because if you focus too much on the solution, you will go, at one point, you can go completely wrong. And this is, I think, the same thing for the government or the public sector in general. When you're buying something, have the goal in mind. And your, let's say, goal should never be the technology. Your goal should be the happiness of the people, the wealth of the people, or whatever. And you can measure it in many ways. This is one point. And another point from the startup community is, let's say, about the risk-taking. And I agree that you shouldn't make the system in a way that the government should be a risk taker, or let's say an institution should be a risk taker, which risks to be, let's say, in LSM publicly, let's say, shamed for doing something that was unclear. Innovation is unclear by its very definition. So you have to have this ability to fail. So one example is company 3M, which is a very innovative company, and what they actually do is when they launch a product that has failed, they make a celebration out of it. You know, it's a good thing sometimes to fail. Of course, there should be some limits. It still should be legal. But talking about the leadership from the hierarchy on top, this should be the message. Innovate, be ready that you can fail, but as long as you're somehow going to this very measurable target, that's okay. And this should be the message from the top.
Līva, please speak on the speed. How quick can the government side react nowadays on the different maybe needs, and do you see some improvement needed there?
React to what?
React to society needs, developing the digital tools, bringing solutions that are asked from the society side, from the business side.
Well, in essence, the government they're still the same people. If they want to react fast, we have seen the government react really fast and do things kind of really quickly. It's kind of, I would say it really comes down to an individual level. For example, I mentioned these case studies of open health labs. We just launched them in autumn, validated 8 cases of very specific challenges that had a very specific purpose to make the experience of patients in a hospital better. So there's a clear purpose. You have a startup that can solve it. Failing is also a question, I think, about branding. You can use the word validate, and then it's not a failure. You can validate a challenge. You find out it doesn't work. That makes sense. So 4 out of 8 challenges are moving forward. So you didn't actually fail. You validated, and then you have a success rate. And I think that the state is moving forward. There are some aspects, of course, of the practicalities, of the constraints, of the legal constraints that could be very much improved. But one thing I maybe wanted to mention, that there are 2 ways of the state promoting innovation. One is that the state can be the client, and it can be the buyer, and it can collaborate with, say, a startup and buy and implement it. But there is another way, which I also think is very, very important, is promoting kind of creation of startups in general. And the state can do that by, for example, opening data. And that's a thing that I think we saw very much what Swedbank did, for example, with open banking, that you open this API and you give out data, and that promotes the creation of new startups. Maybe those startups will not be the clients of the state or the government, or there will be no financial relationship, but the state owns a lot of data, a lot of infrastructure that it can use and offer to promote the creation of new startups within our infrastructure. And that is also, I think, a very, very important role that the government can play to promote this innovation.
Mm-hmm. It has been a power play on the business side. The government has been in penalty kill. Let's switch things up. Got this from your point of view. Okay, you might be willing to do things fast. You might need solutions for different problems. What do you see then, Māris? Maybe you can add something to that as well. Okay, from the government point of view, what can businesses do better? What can startups do better? Because I don't want to paint this picture black and white. Of course, on both sides, there's some need for improvement. What do you see are the things that the government wishes would see more from the business side?
As it was mentioned already in one of the presentations, the government, one of the cares is this sustainability and stability. And then the way how startups look on the government are those elephants and slow moving. And from the government side, if we look on the startup kind of scene, we see that like a one hit wonders, or now it is like after half a year they have sold, and so my service is gone. So the government wishes to have this stability. How to guarantee this? Because we put the citizens, the society on those services. And just reacting to what Liva mentioned, I think from the government side is also now we are like switching more from the. If in previous period we were very focused on this digital government, e-government, digitizing systems, platforms, digital service, now we are focusing more on this added value. We are starting to think about this transformation part more than a digital part. And I think in this case, if we look from the government side that our role is to provide specific services, then we can be more kind of creative on the different ways how to achieve that, whether it's like internally government, like created some platform, whether it's like made some ecosystem for startups which could provide this service for government, for society. And then for the government role is to provide those enablers, how to connect those worlds. For example, it was mentioned, this open data. Other is under development now. We are these digital wallets, which will allow for citizens to like control the sharing of their data from the government to the private sector, and maybe vice versa. So I think it will bring additional opportunities also for the private sector to jump in and work on government services for the citizens. And so I think for government side, it's also those great enablers. But on the government side, we are caring about the sustainability and stability as well.
Māris?
Yeah, to continue on the sustainability part, I think that's one aspect where true that if we want some service be available to the general public, for example, or specific professional groups for a longer term, then there is a request or intrinsic interest in bringing the sustainability component, the bringing the values that are providing on the longer term. So that's one then translate basically to one ask to the startups community, don't be afraid to collaborate and cooperate with some more established names in the industry, so you are not pitching alone, but go in partnership with someone which is viewed from the market as more a stable partner. And that's one thing. Another thing is, I think, is don't be afraid to come and talk to the beast, the government. Because it's from what we heard today and we see in every day that the more information we as a state institutions are receiving, the better is our ability to open up and see what we can change in order to also enable cooperation with the startups as well. For example, just earlier today we had a discussion on digital health strategy, and part of this cooperation group are also a number of NGOs which are comprised of startup communities as well, representatives from the startup. So those companies, those people are actively participating in shaping a government policy for the next 6-7 years. And so just don't only focus on your exit strategy, but also come to us and help us to build the ecosystem where you can thrive.
We have less than 2 minutes left. I don't want tomatoes being thrown at me, so I need to take some questions from our question pool. I will pick a few. There are 2 questions that are somewhat similar. They're all about involving businesses in ecosystem planning, implementation. Also, how can the businesses be more part of the digitalization process and help the government. Gus, from your point of view, what would you say? What are the involvement points? At which points can businesses come and talk and be more involved if they want to?
There are different ways. One way already explained that there are some different boards where a business can join with their ideas and jump in at the strategic levels. But one of the good ways how to connect with the government, at least on this initial strategic level, is through different NGOs, associations, which would allow for businesses like to consolidate their view and come like as a stable partner. But of course, there are a lot of things like also in government, the grassroots activities that are going on, and if you are like the player, one of the player of the sectors, you can just jump in with the responsible ministry or institution and see what are the challenges where they are faced and how you can like maybe work on that and then come with some offer and then see how to scale it in more like a structured way. But I think the government institutions are pretty open for the businesses also to discuss on such level as well.
Ģirts, why should startups work with the government?
Government is, the public sector in general is a huge opportunity, I believe, for startups, for companies in general, and I've always been very enthusiastic about it. So in general, I think having government as your customer brings a lot of benefits. First of all, it's very stable. Statistics show that if you get them as your customer, it's a very stable customer. But second is the reputation. If some government or some government institution is using you, you can put it anywhere. It's as a marketing strategy, it's very great. So businesses can give a lot to the government, but the government can give a lot to the businesses as well.
And finally, Ģirts and Līva, the final question, we're talking about the power of the tech community. One thing, what is the power of the tech community that the government should take and use more of? Ģirts, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would not use maybe so technical wish, but I would use a wish that at the end we are not focusing only on a delivery to the society, but past this user experience. The senior citizen in Bauska test, so always remember to whom you are delivering, and even if it's nice technology, then how it will be perceived by this ultimate user, customer.
Ģirts Slaviņš?
It will be quite banal, but I would say that the government should finally start to learn from the private sector, and
in what ways?
That also includes how to organize the work in creating digital products. So just simply that you have some product ownership, you have some teams working on certain things and not leaving them, as I said, from project, not changing people from project to project.
Not a project, but a platform, right?
Concentrate on the certain aspects of the platform, like it's done in the biggest startups that we have, Printful, Printify, and others. And they have very robust structures, and you can learn from them. I would say that would be my biggest wish and dream. And then it's also you can learn from smaller companies, like, for example, ours, where you sometimes cannot afford that many product teams working on very specific issues where you have to combine people working on many issues. So, but I think government could finally start to learn from it and decrease this fragmentation of the resources, because I believe there are many fine people working in government. When you meet them in person, you're sometimes surprised how with so good people, so professional people, you can sometimes have so bad results. So, and I think that learning from the ways private sector startups and startup communities are organizing the everyday work is maybe an answer.
Okay, Līva, take us home.
I agree with the product ownership mindset. I think the product management methods, so there's two aspects, mindset and methods. That's something definitely the state could bring in. I will add a little bit about knowledge of opportunities, because for the state, it's not their job to scout trends or learn about AI or ChatGPT. However, for the startups, it's their day job, and it's how they work and how they live. So this is a unique opportunity that the state can come to the startups or the tech community and learn from them, because what we see in our day job, it's quite often that we have the state institution. It's not about just whether they do or do not want to work with the startup. They do not always know the opportunities on how they can, for example, make their work more effective, and what technologies are out there and what the trends are, what are the possibilities. So I would say that would be step one, work together with the community to understand what are the possibilities to maybe improve the state services and work.
Definitely, I think adding to the question that I asked Ģirts, it's definitely a work that brings benefit to the society, and I hope that after this discussion we can build upon it in the second discussion that will be coming at the end of this event. Right now I have to send this event in a break, so let's have a round of applause to our dear speakers, Gatis, Māris, Ģirts, Līva, Ģirts, and Ģirts. Thank you for all of your contribution. We'll continue this event at 2 o'clock, so right now get a coffee, get some fresh air, and see you back here at 2 o'clock, both here in attendance and online. See you soon.